All right. Apocalypse depth dive. Let's jump right in.
Ready when you are.
So we're talking Apocalypse, one of Marvel's most enduring villains. And we've got a ton of material to get through today.
We do.
But, and this is key, we're not just going to list his powers and his evil plans.
Right.
We want to understand him.
Yeah.
Like, what makes this guy tick? Is he just a power-hungry monster, or is there something more to him than that?
Well, and this is what I find really interesting. You can't separate Apocalypse's actions from his own personal history. I mean, This isn't some kind of abstract force of evil we're dealing with here. His origins are really, really rooted in tragedy.
Tragedy. Okay, come on now.
Oh, yeah.
We're talking about a guy who routinely threatens to wipe out, like, all of humanity.
Right.
How tragic can it actually get?
Well, let's go back. Okay, go back to his beginnings in ancient Egypt.
Okay.
Okay, so imagine you're born and you've got gray skin, you've got these blue markings on your face. You're this stark contrast to everyone else around you.
Yeah.
That was En Sabah Nur, abandoned as a baby, just because of how he looked.
Hold on, En Sabah Nur. I thought, didn't we say that translates to, like, the first light?
It does.
That's kind of a rough start for a guy who pretty much becomes synonymous with, well, you know, the apocalypse.
It is, and that contradiction, that right there,
Yeah.
is essential to understanding this character.
Okay.
He clings to that name, the name that was given to him by the leader of this desert tribe that finds him, a guy named Baal. Yeah. Not exactly known for, like, warm and fuzzy parenting techniques. We're talking harsh desert environment, constant struggle for survival, very much a kill-or-be-killed kind of world.
So he goes from, what, abandoned infant to being raised by these, like, hardcore desert nomads?
Pretty much.
Now, that's got to leave some scars, right? And I'm guessing that's where this whole survival of the fittest philosophy that he has comes from.
Exactly. Baal instilled this brutal, brutal philosophy in him, you know. Only the strong are worthy of survival. Weakness has to be purged. And that's harsh, but in their world, it kind of made sense. Now, take that belief and then imagine yourself as this incredibly powerful, possibly immortal being.
Whoa. So it's like that belief, brutal as it is, it makes sense in the context of how he was raised, right?
Yeah.
But when you add superpowers to the equation, suddenly the stakes are a lot higher than just, you know, surviving in the desert. It's like he's holding all of humanity to these same brutal standards that he had to live by.
And then to complicate things even further, you've got to factor in the celestial influence.
Oh, here we go. The Celestials.
Yeah.
These are like, what, cosmic beings?
Right.
Godlike entities.
Yeah. They're the ones who basically enhanced Apocalypse's abilities. It's almost like they were making a gamble on him. You know,
Yeah.
It wasn't just giving him power. There was an expectation that came with it.
So, like, it's almost like they gave him a little push,
Yeah.
you know, a cosmic nudge
It's possible.
in a very specific direction. And that raises so many questions. Like, was he always going to become, you know, Apocalypse? Was that his destiny? Or did the Celestials, you know, did they kind of give him a nudge in that direction?
Yeah, I mean, that's the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And to even begin to answer that, I think we need to look at how he actually uses those powers.
Okay.
Starting with the first time he really, truly takes on that name, Apocalypse.
So last time we were talking about Apocalypse, this ancient mutant with, like, god-level powers thanks to these mysterious Celestials.
Right, like they were placing a bet on him or something.
Exactly. And that they kind of nudged him toward becoming the Apocalypse we know.
Possibly, yeah.
So how does he go from this guy wandering around the desert to, well, you know, Apocalypse?
Well, this is where I think we see it's this fascinating contradiction in his character, almost.
Okay.
So, on the one hand, he wants to test the strong, right? He wants to push them to evolve, create conflict, to weed out the weak. But he also builds this whole legacy, this dynasty around family.
Family.
Yeah.
Now, come on. This is the same guy who wants to, like, wipe out most of humanity, right?
True. But it's not about, like, warm and fuzzy feelings with him.
Okay.
For Apocalypse, family represents, like, the purest form of his whole ideology. Inheriting strength, passing it down. That's why his children, the very first Horsemen, are so important to him.
Wait, the Horsemen?
Yeah.
You mean those super powerful beings, those, I don't know, lieutenants, whatever, who do his bidding?
Exactly. But they weren't just followers he picked up along the way. I mean, these were his children. He raised them, trained them with you could say a very unique form of love.
Okay.
They were supposed to be his ultimate weapons, you know, living proof that his ideals worked.
And what happened?
Their story, it's actually pretty tragic. Imagine battling demons on, get this, the shattered remnants of Okar, this this mutant island.
Wow.
Yeah, that was their fate. Apocalypse, he orchestrates this whole thing, this battle, and it cost him his children.
So he loses his kids because of, well, because of him. I mean, talk about a messed up family reunion,
Yeah, I
right?
could say that again.
Yeah.
And this loss, it drives him. He creates Clan Akkaba.
Right.
Basically, these are his descendants. They're tasked with preserving his legacy, manipulating civilizations from the shadows, guiding them toward conflict.
Why?
To prepare for his return, of course. Apocalypse. He needs to regenerate every now and then. Goes into this kind of, I don't know, sleep. And when he wakes up, he wants the world to be ready for him.
So he's got like family ties on a global scale.
Pretty much.
And he's playing this long game, right? I mean, we're talking centuries. Speaking of long games, didn't the sources say something about like Apocalypse and Dracula, that they had a history? That sounds like a story.
Oh, that is a story and a half. We're talking centuries old vendetta. It all goes back to, I think it was 15th century Romania.
Okay.
Vlad Tepes, the guy who'd become Dracula.
Right.
He has this little run-in with Apocalypse.
I'm guessing it didn't go well for Vlad.
Not so much, no. Vlad, even with his, let's say, ruthlessness, he was no match for Apocalypse. He gets defeated, humiliated, and, well, that defeat, it sets off this whole chain of events that leads to, Vlad becoming Dracula, the immortal vampire we all know and love.
Wow.
In Dracula, he blames Apocalypse for the whole thing, for his transformation, for his curse.
Hold on. So Apocalypse, he's not just influencing civilizations. He's got a hand in like vampire lore too. That's impressive.
Right. But Dracula isn't the only big name Apocalypse is tangled with.
Oh.
His relationship with Mr. Sinister, that's fascinating too.
Mr. Sinister.
Yeah, this brilliant but, well, completely amoral geneticist obsessed with mutant evolution.
Right, right.
Sinister, he recognizes Apocalypse's power. In Apocalypse, he sees potential in Sinister, specifically his intellect. So what does Apocalypse do? He gives Sinister this extended lifespan.
In exchange for
Service, of course.
Wait, Apocalypse, Mr. Survival of the Fittest, is teaming up with a scientist. Isn't that a little,
Hypocritical.
Yeah, maybe.
It's all about how Apocalypse defines strength. Sinister, he's a genius. He's manipulating the very building blocks of life. That's power in Apocalypse's book.
Okay, that makes sense, I guess. But you got to figure Sinister, he's got his own agenda, right?
Oh, absolutely. He's always scheming, always looking for an advantage.
This is where things get really, really interesting, don't they? We've got Apocalypse, this ancient, powerful being, but he's not just working alone. He's got this family legacy in Clan Akkaba, a centuries-old vendetta with Dracula, and now this very, very uneasy alliance with Mr. Sinister.
It's a lot to juggle, even for someone like Apocalypse.
It makes you wonder, with all this setup, how does he finally end up going head-to-head with the X-Men? It's pretty wild to think about everything we've learned about Apocalypse, I mean, manipulating history through his clan, the ancient grudge he's got with Dracula, even working with someone like Mr. Sinister.
Right.
But he's probably best known for his battles with the X-Men.
Of course.
So how does that all start?
Well, you've got Apocalypse, right?
Mhm.
He believes only the strong survive.
Right.
He's all about pushing humanity forward through conflict.
Survival of the fittest.
Exactly. And then you've got the X-Men fighting for peace, for coexistence between humans and mutants. I mean, it's a clash of ideologies right at the core.
Yeah. You'd think he'd just, I don't know, write them off as weak beneath his notice.
You'd think so, wouldn't you?
Yeah. But there's almost like this obsession there.
He sees them as worthy adversaries.
Okay.
A test. The X-Men, with their powers, their resilience, they represent the potential he sees in humanity.
Okay.
He pushes them, hoping, maybe, that they'll break. But also, maybe a part of him hopes they'll prove him wrong about this whole conflict thing.
So it's not just about destroying them, it's about pushing them to evolve.
Exactly.
And this is where Cable comes in, right? We were talking earlier about Apocalypse's, complicated family life, and this just takes it to a whole other level.
Oh, yeah. Cable. The time-traveling soldier. That's Nathan Summers, Cyclops' son.
Right. I mean, that alone, time travel.
But here's the thing. Apocalypse, he infects Cable with this techno-organic virus.
What? As a baby?
When he was just a baby.
That's pretty messed up, even for him.
He was trying to mold him, you see.
Okay.
Apocalypse, he needed someone strong enough to inherit his power.
So he infects this This poor kid with a deadly virus.
A trial by fire. That's how Apocalypse sees it.
We've talked about, like, Apocalypse's impact on history, right? But this, the Age of Apocalypse, that really shows us what a world run by Apocalypse would actually look like.
Yeah, it's a bleak picture, isn't it? Professor X is dead. And without him, mutants are enslaved.
So what are we supposed to, like, take away from all of this? What's the deal with Apocalypse? He's this morally complex fish shaped by his past, driven by this belief in survival through conflict. But he's also capable of, love, I mean, in his own way. Is there any hope for him to ever break free of that cycle, all the destruction?
I don't know. That's the big question, isn't it? He's been called a force of nature, as inevitable as evolution itself.
But he embodies change.
So maybe, just maybe, he can change too.
A lot to think about. We've gone from ancient Egypt to alternate timelines, family drama to cosmic beings, all to try and understand this one incredibly complex character. And honestly, I think we've only scratched the surface.
There's always more to uncover, right?
Always. So to everyone listening, here's a little something to ponder. What if the real apocalypse isn't the end of the world, but the end of change itself? That's it for our deep dive into Apocalypse. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, keep exploring.